I think that people who are good leaders are those who are actually looking out rather than in at themselves. That they are the people who are listening, who are trying to bring out the best in others. Those who try to find ways for groups of people to collaborate. Those people who are able to help identify the gifts that other people have. So it's not about the leader, it's about the people around the leader. I think that people who are self-centered, people who are not kind, people who are rude are certainly ineffective as leaders. I believe in the charm school principles, and I often have to explain what charm school is to others. At one time there were department stores that had classes for young women where they learned to be charming. They learned about manners. They learned about etiquette. And I think that if we all were graduates of charm school, that we would all be better leaders. However, that being said, I don't think that there is a one-size-fits-all. It's like figuring out what kind of trial lawyer you're going to be, what your style is going to be. What works for me may not work for the person next to me. On cross-examination, I'm not effective if I try to be mean and forceful. So that's what works for me. But what works for me will not necessarily work for other people. Well, that's an interesting question because it has a history of about 17 years. About 17 years ago, I thought we needed to change how something was done in the court system. And so I took my good idea and I went to one of the people who would be affected by this change. And I told him why I had a good idea. And he very quickly made it clear to me that he did not think that it was a good idea. And our relationship took about 3 big steps backwards. So fast forward 17 years, and I've learned quite a bit in the last 17 years. I've learned that we have to listen to people. I have learned that sometimes things can't be rushed. I've learned that everyone at the table has something important to contribute. So we now have this pilot project that involves judges, the clerk's office, the probation office, the U.S. Attorney's Office, the Marshal Service, and defense attorneys. And we're successful this time. The change that I looked to happen 17 years ago is now happening because everyone who is in that group had something important to bring to the table, and we all listened to what they had to say. We have collaborated. We have about 7 versions of our pilot project, but we have finally ended up in a place where everyone has benefited somehow by the changes that have been made in how defendants are brought into court and how they meet their attorneys. Well, I think it's very, very important that people have mentors. And so I have 3 sets of mentors. I have the mentor who gave me my first job. He's been practicing law now for about 60 years. And so he was the first person who gave me a chance to put into practice what I had learned in law school. And over the last 40 years, I have returned to him to ask him questions. So the first class of mentor are those people who have much more experience than I. And then the second group of mentors are the people who are my contemporaries, who are at about the same place that they are in, that I am in my my career, but they are facing the same sorts of issues, the same sorts of challenges. And so my relationship with that set of mentors gives me an opportunity to brainstorm, for example, the personnel issues in my office. And then the third set of mentors are those people who are less experienced, but they're quite a bit younger, and they have a new way of looking at things. You know, they can suggest a good idea to me that maybe it hadn't crossed my mind because I get so much in a rut. So having mentors is important, and having a variety of mentors is important. All of those things that we've already talked about. I look for people who are enthusiastic. I look for people who are willing to learn. I look for people who are humble. I look for people who are willing to try new things. One of the first things is I try to be sure that I'm always surrounded by students. There is nothing more encouraging, nothing that leads to better results than being with students, because they lack the cynicism that so many of us find ourselves slipping into. And at one time I thought, okay, I will always have experience over students. But I've learned that what students lack in experience, that they have in creativity, in enthusiasm. There's nothing better than having a group of interns come into an office of seasoned criminal defense lawyers who have gotten to the point where everything leads to a cynical remark. To have students come in and be excited about the Fourth Amendment, about the Sixth Amendment, about being sure that the right thing happens, it's humbling, and it leads to good results.